Where's your emergency?
Just killing my mom and my sister.
Fear of the dark.
When someone is obsessed over something, then the only important thing in their life is the obsession. Yet I prefer to think that it is part of our lives if we don't fulfill this need. Then different effects may happen, but that only depends on how we as individuals take it, whether in a positive or negative light. Humans tend to be lustful creatures as we all have needs and wants. Therefore, we all have an obsession with something that's either good or bad. However, the murder case of Blake Leibel is a gruesome and yet complex story of how this man committed this crime. Did his passion job push his limits to do this? Or was this sadistic fantasy that was the cause of the corruption of his mind? Here's the story of how the darkest crevices of a man's fleshly heart can overthrow his better judgments. Blake Leibel is a former Canadian comic book creator and graphic novelist residing in Los Angeles, California. Leibel was born to two notable wealthy Canadian families. In 2010, Archaea published Leibel's graphic novel named Syndrome, which was a joint venture with Leibel's company, Fantasy Prone. As he described the novel, Syndrome is a story about obsession on a number of levels as experienced by four different characters who all come from different worlds and yet find themselves tangled in this huge, impeccably simulated environment. It's the ultimate backstory in that sense. The story revolted around a sadistic doctor and serial killers he was studying, and this was a preparation for a graphic novel he was creating for publication. The storyline told the narrative of a serial killer who kills his victims by slitting their throats and hanging them by the ankles as he watched them slowly bleed to an agonizing death. In 2016, Blake used this plot as a blueprint inspiration as he worked on years earlier for the brutal torture and murder of his model girlfriend, Yana Kassian, who came from a modest background, a Ukrainian who arrived in the U.S. with hopes for a better future. But little did she know, she would be killed by the man who was supposed to love and protect her as well as her daughter weeks after giving birth to the child. Olga, Kassian's mother, went looking for Kassian. After being unable to contact her, even after making more than 10 calls, she eventually got the police involved. She attempted to conduct a search for Leibel in Kassian's apartment out of words for her daughter, but unfortunately she got no answers. When Olga got some courage to get back to the couple's apartment alone, she stood across the street yelling up to Leibel to open up the door. But she saw him in the window, only to close it, disappearing inside. Police returned to the apartment and broke in, where they were met with a horror show. Before sheriff deputies arrested Leibel at the West Hollywood apartment he shared with Kassian, he had blocked the doorways with mattresses and locked himself in a bedroom with Kassian's mangled body. Ayana was alive during 8 hours of torture and died a very slow, excruciating, and painful death. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman said, adding that the killing was patterned after Syndrome, a graphic novel that was created years earlier. It showed a gory illustration of a headless woman's body laying on a blood-soaked mattress, as well as two people being hung from their feet, drained of blood. Its cover shows a photographed picture of a baby doll head with most of its skull removed to reveal a brain. Tragically, Yana's entire scalp was not found. Her skull had been stripped down to the surface of the bone. There was no scalp present except for bits and pieces in the back portions of her neck. The right side of her face was torn away, including the right ear and the part of the posterior face on the right side all the way down to the jawline. There were a number of bruises on her face, primarily on the left side, the left cheek, the left jaw area, including one that turned out to be a human bite mark. She had lived for at least 8 hours approximately after receiving the scalp injury and the bruise to the collarbone. The autopsy reports was released on September 20th, 2017, listing her causes of death as insanguination and head trauma. This tragedy even left Kasayan's family devastated and heartbroken. Their infant daughter was in the care of Kasayan's mother, who was visiting from the Ukraine and staying in a nearby apartment. On June 20th, 2018, Leibel was convicted of first-degree murder, torture, and aggravated mayhem. On June 26, 2018, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole and currently serving his sentence at the California Correction Institution.
Graphic novel killer. Prosecutors say a comic book he created depicted a chilling murder that foreshadowed his own fiance's slaying.
I've seen some gruesome crimes, and this is one of the most gruesome.
37-year-old Blake Leibel's graphic novel features a beautiful young woman who falls victim to a serial killer. This illustration from the novel shows the murder victim on a blood-soaked mattress. And this police photo from the real-life crime scene also shows a bloody mattress.
Violence is one of the most problematic issues that society faces today, and it has been increasing day after day nationwide. The most common description of what violence really is can be given as negativity towards something or someone through physical or verbal actions, which often cause the victim to suffer pain or even death. Jealousy in response to an outside threat to a relationship is normal. But if one partner is jealous for no reason, this can be considered a red flag, especially if the jealousy includes extreme anger and unfounded accusations. This must have been what happened in our next terrifying crime case, that jealousy can lead to nefarious behaviors. On Saturday, October 21st, 2022, for 32-year-old Nestor Hernandez, who opened fire around 10:20 a.m. while at the hospital visiting his girlfriend who'd just given birth to their child. He was accused of shooting and killing 2 nurses at the Methodist Dallas Hospital in the mother-baby unit, striking and killing 65-year-old Jacqueline Pakua and 63-year-old Annette Flowers. While in the room with his girlfriend, Selena Villatoro, and a newborn baby, Hernandez began to act strange and accused his girlfriend of cheating on him according to the report, and he began looking through the closet and bathroom for anyone that may be in the room, and he pulled his gun out of his pants. Hernandez then struck his girlfriend in the head multiple times with the gun and began the ominous calls and texts to his family. He then told his girlfriend, "We are both going to die today, and whoever comes in this room is going to die with us." That's when, seconds later, a nurse and a social worker named Jacqueline Pakua came in to provide services for Hernandez's girlfriend. He stood up and shot her, as well as the other nurse, Annette Flowers, after she looked into the room, who was shot in the hallway. Methodist Hospital Police Sergeant Robert Rangel was down the hall for unrelated matters when he heard what sounds like gunshots in a nearby room. He witnessed a second employee being shot, which caused him to go into cover and call for help on his radio. Rangel then shot Hernandez in the right leg, preventing him from leaving the hospital room. He was taken into custody after a short standoff. Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia said at a news conference, "A violent individual such as this should have not been on an ankle monitor and should have remained in custody." Dallas County records show that Nestor Hernandez has been arrested repeatedly of multiple offenses since 2011, including on charges of aggravated battery, burglary, and the lawful possession of a firearm by a felon. He then was charged with capital murder related to the 2 deaths.
Methodist Dallas frustration that the gunman charged with murdering 2 Methodist Dallas employees was allowed to be inside the hospital.
Nestor Hernandez was on parole from the state prisons for aggravated robbery. He was wearing an electronic ankle monitor at the time. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice granted him permission to be with his girlfriend for the birth of their baby Saturday morning.
We regard our fathers as heroes who will protect and cherish us, but this is not always the case for everyone. Some people grow up confused since they have a toxic father who beats and abuses them, whether physically, mentally, or emotionally. And this is the case of our next crime story of a 16-year-old son, Stephen Lee Rada, that 37-year-old father, Stephen Thomas Rada, was arrested after he viciously and brutally hit his son in the head with an angle grinder so hard that it broke the tool, which was found next to the teenager's body. Unfortunately, he was found dead inside the dining area in a mobile home in Lake Wales on Monday, September 4th, 2023. The 16-year-old was living with his grandfather, Thomas Rada, to help him out while his grandmother was in rehab. According to the sheriff's office, the murder scene was discovered by the victim's grandfather, Thomas Rada, who was returning home from visiting his wife at the Palm Gardens Rehabilitation Center. When he returned home at 11 a.m., the suspect met him outside the mobile home, who asked for a cigarette before giving him a cryptic warning. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd says the suspect told his father, "I wouldn't go in there if I were you. I killed someone. You need to call the police." The grandfather went inside the home and found his grandson dead, and it absolutely broke his heart into pieces, as well as the entire family. Deputies found Stephen Thomas Rada on Highway 60 near Westlake Wales Road North. He had blood on his jeans and a fresh laceration on his knuckle on his right hand index finger, according to the authorities. Stephen Thomas Rada showed no remorse or concern for killing his son. The Polk County Sheriff said the suspect had a history of psychotic episodes, as well as a problem with methamphetamine abuse. The suspect was charged with first-degree murder after his arrest. He's being held on no bond as of Tuesday, September 5th, 2023.
The Polk County Sheriff calls this a horrific murder. Stephen Rada accused of killing his own son with his same first name, a 16-year-old boy also named Stephen.
The next case is Stephen Rada.
37-year-old Stephen Thomas Rada with some bizarre, unprovoked responses in court Tuesday.
I have a pardon from Montana, and my name is Michael Olin.
All right, I'll appoint the public defender's office to represent you, sir.
I own the NFL as well, so...
He is facing a charge of first-degree murder, accused of killing his own son.
Being a capital felony, you'll be held no bond.
This was the scene Monday in Lake Wales, where Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd says Rada killed his 16-year-old son, Stephen Lee Rada, with an angle grinder, a type of power tool. According to the sheriff, the boy's grandfather came home to find his son...
Good evening, everyone. This is Yuri K, and this is the end of the video. Please leave a comment and let us know your opinions on the matter. If you happen to like this content, please check out our other videos. Make sure you like and share amongst your friends and family to help our community grow. You happen to be new to this channel? Please make sure you subscribe. It's free, and you can always change it in the future. You have some terrifying story suggestions? If so, make sure that you send it to my email, fearofthedarkstories@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in a future segment. But you guys stay safe out there, and remember to always be afraid of the dark.